Good afternoon, John. How you doing today?
Good, good. How are you?
You survived the rainstorm in New York this weekend? Because you're
Yeah,
in San
no.
Francisco.
Yeah, in SF, so I don't have to worry about, but I'm gonna be in New York next week. So
Okay, right on, right on. Would love to talk a little bit about what you're up to at Assembled. So you are one of the co-founders. You're the co-founder and CTO at Assembled. You worked at Stripe, where I think you met your co-founder and originated the idea. What's Assembled all about?
Assembled, we build tools to make customer support teams more effective. It started, as you mentioned, at Stripe, where well, actually one of the last things my co-founders worked on was an internal tool at Stripe, and this was a customer support kind of like ML system that tried to categorize the incoming issues and give you results of like how you should apply those or how you should answer those results. Um, Actually improved customer satisfaction by 40%, saved a ton of money. The reason why we had built it was because it was so hard to find good customer support tools. And then so we decided to go do it outside of Stripe. And yeah, from there, it's been really kind of like building out a set of systems, a set of tools that make your team as effective as possible, given what level of costs that you're actually looking for. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into how to run a good support team. Um, and yeah, we help you solve a large chunk of those.
Very cool. And you all started the company before Gen AI
Yeah.
commercialization, right? Pre-Chat GPT. So I imagine your world has changed dramatically in the past couple of years as
Yeah.
LLMs have become part of the customer support scene. How do you kind of view that inflection moment, pre-LLM to post-LLM, and how the company and the world of support is changing post-AI, post-Gen AI?
Yeah, it's an exciting time for us, honestly. Like when we started, and actually one of the reasons why we started the company is we were we were talking to this very high up product manager at Stripe, talking about this system that had been built at Stripe for, support tooling. And they were like, why are you working on this? You know? And it was like, I've got this Bitcoin project that I want you guys to work on instead. Come do this thing. And that's actually when we decided, like, oh my God, people don't care about this. There's opportunity here. And so it's actually very different now because actually now people care about it. Like the chairman of OpenAI has a startup in the space. It's like everyone and their mom has a startup in the space, which is exciting for us because it means, okay, now actually there's a lot of innovation happening. And it's meant also that we've changed a little bit in the way we think about things. We've always built what was called a workforce management system, which is how do you figure out how many people to hire, where to put them, and how do you staff them in terms of lunches and breaks and like starting times to match your demand. That can be very complex when you have 10,000 support agents. It looks a little different in the AI era because you might have fewer people. You might care a little bit more about how do I send volume to AI. And so what we've done is we've adopted, well, A, we've built out AI agents ourselves. But B, I think we are adopting a how do you build a team that sends the right questions and the right issues to AI and sends the right issues to a human. You want to provide a very different level of support for $1 million per year user versus a free subscription user. And when you exit out of an agent during an escalation, it should escalate to the right person. And you want to make sure that when you escalate, the high value users always have a person immediately available to you. So that experience should be like really, really smooth. It's like almost like a joke at this point where if you go to like a United, actually United can sometimes have good support at this point, but like if you go to an airline,
If
right?
you're
And
1K, if you spent
yeah, yeah, if you're
$28,000
1K,
with
yeah,
them,
the
you can
right
get
people, right?
you can get very good customer support. Yeah.
You don't want to be waiting on hold for 45 minutes, right? If you go through an AI and the AI can't solve your question, and then you also have to wait for 45 minutes, you're going to be really angry.
Right.
So for us, it's how do we improve that experience? And a lot of it comes down to how do you build good systems on top of AI that uses agents to help you build the right rules, to help you understand how your teams are performing, how to make changes intraday. Like a big thing that we see a lot is that in the old era, you would have a person looking at graphs and being like, oh my God, there's a lot of tickets coming in right now. I've got to move people from this side of the business over to this side of the business, or I've got to put up a bunch of overtime, or I've got to do all this stuff in order to like move things around, or I've got to make my AI agent a little bit harder to escalate to a human on. And now I think you can do a lot of that in a much more automated way, which is very exciting because I think it gives you that next layer of control on how are you thinking about the whole customer support operation.
Very cool. So you're doing a mix of kind of observability of the system as well as optimization and helping define the rules, the routing, when to involve a human, when to use agents, and giving analytics and insight into that whole experience from beginning to end.
Exactly, exactly.
Very coll. Very cool. Well, there's a lot of parallels to what you're doing in customer support to
Yeah,
what's happening in engineering as we're increasingly trying to figure out which tasks can be delegated to agents and even seeing work happening now on routers, trying to figure
yep,
out which workloads, which tasks can be
yep.
delegated to agents. Can you use a cheaper model? Do you need a frontier model? So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in the world of engineering. I'd love to peer inside your engineering team a little bit and talk
Yep.
about how you've been incorporating AI in your build process. Where are you on your journey? Adopting the tools, AI-ifying your product development loop. Like, where's the team at today?
I think pretty much every engineer uses a coding agent at this point. I think that yeah, we've spent a good amount of time making sure that people have access to whatever tools that they want. Like we basically give people a ramp card and it's like try these things out. That has some upsides, some downsides. We're also invested a lot in an internal tool, similar to kind of like Stripe and Ramp, of how do we make automations happen? How do we run our coding agents in a kind of like cloud that has access to all of our systems and can read those systems. Um, I think that has been very exciting. It's still early on. It's been very exciting for us because it's unlocked the ability for non-engineers to write a bunch of code too. And that previously a non-engineer would have to like download Cursor or Claude Code or Codex and set up their dev environment. And that takes hours and it's like huge activation energy. And so putting it in the cloud in an internal system means anyone has access to this and it's all team based. So that's been very exciting for us. Though I think one of the areas that we are also thinking about is like, how do we make our systems reliable? We have customers like DoorDash, Stripe, Robinhood, where if we go down, their support operations are down too. And it's actually quite important for us to maintain reliability and not ship a ton of bugs. So we do want to ship really quickly, but we have kind of like a somewhat nuanced view on this where it's like our core systems, the important thing there is high performance, high reliability. And then for our new builds, it's like go wild within like this little sandbox that of like stuff that you're building out new. Um, and I think there can definitely be different types of people who like excel at different parts of those.
Very cool. So you've almost defined like zones of engagement and different rules depending on the risk to the business and like how core and how critical a given subsystem is. That's really cool. So when you talk about folks outside of engineering being able to ship code, I'm guessing this looks like authoring a ticket or maybe firing off a workflow from Slack. What kind of parameters do you have around that? Like, is it kind of a free for all, or is there a very specific kind of workflow that folks need to follow to spin up and do work in these cloud environments outside of engineering?
So we originally started by writing a little doc that was just like, hey, if you're not like an engineer by profession, you need to go through these steps. And the steps were relatively straightforward. Is like you need to test it yourself. In the PR description, you need to post a screenshot or a Loom video of you running it. And you need to get a PM to say, hey, does this make sense? And only after all of those things, get in an engineer to review. It worked pretty well. I think the thing that all of those steps did was make it unlikely for anyone to ship a PR because it's like, okay, now I have to go through these multiple steps of review. So as time went on, we marginally relaxed some of these constraints, like a PM or an engineer can now review instead of just like it has to be a PM. But we still want you to run the code, obviously, and you need to be able to see this change is doing the right thing. That is still like the biggest activation energy difference in terms of like how are folks actually run code. And so the reason why we went about building this internal system was because uh, you just need a login and the system has Cloud Code and Codex running in sandboxes. So you can essentially go and run something. And the nice thing about this is also we can set up constraints for non-engineers. Like there's a role of a builder role and an engineer role. And if you're a builder, then you need to run review. Like any of the coding agents, you need to run /review on it before you can even create a PR. And it also means we can build on top of that. So we can put in something like it needs to be a reasonable size. And you can run a coding agent to be like, is this a reasonably scoped PR for someone who's not an engineer? You can say things like, is this touching a super highly, used code path? And that's actually also easy to pull out because we have stats on like how often is any particular endpoint hit.
I'm
So
guessing the agent has an MCP that they can query or something that tells them that.
yeah, so we actually the interesting thing is we set up an MCP and then we pulled it off and we just gave it access to a CLI that has just like a little bit more context. The MCP basically blew up our context
Yeah.
and because we connected it to like so many different things. And so actually now we're giving it access to one tool that has a bunch of subcommands. And that's been working better because the previously you would just have a bajillion tools and we had no control over which tools it had access to. And now we're
hmm
being a little bit more prescriptive about like, okay, for our Mesmo logging system, you can get logs and you can search logs and you can like filter. But that's it.
Yeah.
And just being a slightly more prescriptive on that.
Tell me about your stack a little bit. Like, how did you guys set up this remote cloud environment? Is it all built yourself? Are you using any third parties? Like, what does it take to do this if other folks are interested in doing this?
Yeah, it's built I mean, it's relatively straightforward. It's built similar to our stack. It's on Go. Next.js is the front end. The containerization is using gvisor, and really it's just a bunch of Docker containers. So we try
hmm
to make it super simple. We actually might open source it in the next few weeks because like the reason why we built it is because we saw Stripe, we saw Ramp. We saw all these people doing these things. I was like, I want this.
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
give me
Work OS
this.
just did one 2 weeks back. They blogged about it. I'm talking to a lot of companies right now who are investing in this type of a setup. So,
They're all doing it. And I find it very almost infuriating that no one's open sourcing this.
hmm
When I was starting out, I did a bunch of work on Ruby on Rails. And learning from those folks like Tenderlove, uh, DHH, who are core members of the Rails team, they taught me a ton about software engineering, and I think like having this available open source is probably the right thing to do. So we'll be open sourcing this shortly, and if people want to take it, extend it, that will be great. It'll make it easier for us to move faster. But yeah, there's nothing in there that's like too novel. That's like mostly something that's been built, by one or two engineers. So it's not like also that big of an investment for us. It's like over the course of a few months as like a side project, we've been able to build this out. So
very
it's
cool.
I think it's quite exciting.
Very cool. You talked about the benefits to non-engineers, but are engineers using it as well? Has it become a another tool for them in their development and certain workloads get offloaded to this system?
Yeah, I think the big area that we're seeing there is the automations.
Hmm.
The main area that we had problems with automations before was that, like, let's say you're on Codex or Claude Code and you run a scheduled job, you are the only person who can see that scheduled job, and a PR pops up and you're doing that PR. So the probability that you're going to run an automation to make your teams uh, code better. For example, like check to make sure that all seven of the engineers on my team, their PRs have enough tests on them, right? Like
Hmm.
it's relatively low probability that you go do that because you're mostly concerned about your own code. And I think most of these coding agents, they were built by engineers who are thinking about their own workflows. And so none of them are really on the team basis. And I think that's where we've seen a lot of uptick on usage of this is like, okay, now we can set up something that everyone across the team can see, that everyone has access to and can adjust and can make better. Yeah, I think the automation side of things is really helpful. Like one of the automations we're working on right now that I'm quite excited about is kind of like this self-automating loop automation, where it has access to all of the sessions that have run before. You can take a look and be like, what are all the corrections that have been made? Should we put that into agents.md? Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
should we make a hook from that?
Hmm.
And creates a PR when they see that, and then sends it to kind of like the keeper of our agents.md. You know, stuff like that I think is really easy to build on top of once you have something that just like runs for you. But when everything is Codex or Claude Code running in everyone's little containers, it's just really hard to have the full picture.
Yeah, and I've heard from some other teams that there's, certain structured workflows that you can kick off automations for. So if you have a bug intake process that goes through some level of validation from your support team and it's well specified, maybe the agent can just auto draft the PR. Like the
Yeah.
fix can just show up in somebody's inbox for review. So there's lots of new workflows that can be ideated like that can be running continuously in the background. Um, Including like, another good one that I've heard is like a refactoring agent that is,
Yep.
constantly trying to seek out patterns of tech debt and find ways to clean it up and reduce
Yeah.
complexity. But let's talk a little bit about cost management because it sounds like
Yeah.
you're fairly sophisticated. You've got a lot of these background systems running, your team very heavily using the tools. There's been this theme of token maxing lately as a way of encouraging usage and experimentation and adoption. Um, where are you on the token maxing journey? How are the costs going? Is cost a concern for you and the team right now?
My take on token maxing is I think it's pretty dumb. I don't know what kind of show this is, but if I were to like give my real opinion, I think it's absolutely stupid.
Yeah, we
The
want
the
real
re
takes from real operators. We want to combat the headlines and we want to learn from practitioners and what they're doing in the real world. So, yeah, you can be candid that it's dumb. And we
yeah.
welcome that on the show.
So the reason why I think it's dumb is not because it's like not necessarily misguided. Like, yeah, you want people to use AI, but it's I think it's the the way to do that is not via token maxing. I think the backstory for this is we used to basically have a token maxing idea for our production systems. It was like use the absolute best AI model that you can use, run that for our AI agents that we're actually shipping to our end customers, and just do as much as you can. Cost doesn't matter. Like go ahead and use, the best intelligence available. And that was great until, we looked around and we were like, we are losing money, a lot of money on a token by token basis for everything that we do. Also, we have no muscle in any of our bodies that is like, think about whether or not you need this model. And so I think that was the worst part of it, where it's like, okay, Now you have to convert an entire team that is used to just like throwing the best model at things into a team that thinks about this. And it took us, it was probably like 4 months to just like actually ingrain, 4 or 5 months to actually ingrain that into people's like working cadences. Um, Switching the models themselves is like relatively straightforward, but the kind of like there's a really long tail of a lot of areas where you're going to spend a ton of money for not that much extra gains. Like if you're doing summarization tasks, for example, it's you don't need Opus 4.7 or GPT 5.5. Honestly, Llama 7 will probably do a good job for you. Yeah, it just takes a really long time for you to get that muscle back. And if you don't have that muscle from the beginning, you're gonna look around at your token costs and you're gonna be like, what the heck is going on? I have a friend at YC who's like, yeah, we spend an ungodly amount of money per person on tokens. I was like, well, man, like hopefully you're building a lot with that. But most people are just using 4.7 for their OpenClaw project. And it's like, why?
Yeah, yeah. To write this email, please. I need extended thinking for that. I
Yeah.
want the best email ever. Yeah, having that discretion and that judgment. How has your organization kind of built up a knowledge base of which models to use for which jobs and how to think about like evaluating the effectiveness of a given model for a given task? I'm sure this is kind of an ever going thing as you're now being more cost conscious. But yeah, how do you think about that skill development and evaluating like what tool is the right tool for a given job?
Probably what everyone else says, which is just evals. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, for our production AI, we put a bunch of effort into, you know, figuring out what we needed to eval and how to eval it well. Because obviously, the big the big downside of evals is if you have the wrong evals, you're more confident in a something that you shouldn't be confident in.
Hmm.
And that's
You're
like the
optimizing
worst.
in the wrong direction because the score is going
Yeah,
up. Yeah.
it's the worst place to be. And I think that is an important thing to put into your engineers' minds is like, what are we actually optimizing for? For our AI agents, it's just like, is this a good response? Is this actually resolving our customer issues? We've been putting effort into evals of our coding agents now, which is like, is this providing a high quality actual PR? And would this be shippable P 2020 pre 2025, right? Um, and that requires you to think about it a little bit harder, which is not something that, a super AI pilled engineer really wants to do. They want to like ship a bunch of stuff. So, like, that's also why I think token maxing is kind of dumb because it's like you're feeding the token maxer kind of like, hey, it's okay to just like ship a bunch of stuff. You're just going to have a ton of slop cannons. If you want slop cannons, that's great. But we don't really need slop cannons. We need people who are like shipping high quality product at a fast pace. And that's actually not what a slop cannon is like gonna output for you.
And you're rewarding that, right? When you look at tokens burned, tokens used.
Exactly.
I've
Exactly.
also heard, I don't know if you're experiencing this problem at all with your team, but because it's now so easy to prototype and build demos, there's a lot of demos. There's a lot of stuff being built, but actually aligning that activity to the strategic roadmap and pointing the cannons in the right
Yeah,
direction is an increasing challenge that I'm hearing because you can have a lot of activity, you can be running really fast, but is it aligned and pointed in a direction that's going to move the business forward for your customers? Is
totally.
that something you're experiencing at all? Like kind of product specification and deciding what to work on, is that becoming like a new challenge?
I think there's a lot more emphasis on good product management now, for sure. And it's actually changed the way that we thought about our thinking about recruiting. It's like in our interviews, we're actually hiring much more specifically for product judgment. Like the other day, we launched this new interview that is essentially before you even get to a technical screen, it's like, here's a quick take-home question. It's like a simple prompt, something relevant to Assembled. And it's like, build us something here. And very open-ended, allows you to think about anything. And really the question is like, did you think well about how to build a high quality system? And how do you think about trade-offs? Which I think is the operative thing these days. The other things that we're trying to do with our team is, yeah, we have Friday demos. So like every day, every team will like demo what's going on. But we really encourage people to demo something like an eval. Hey, I've
Mm,
created these evals. Like, here's the before after graph, or here's the performance graph that goes like this.
hmm.
Or
Like the
like
impact, the outcome instead of just the activity or the demo.
exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
So that's been going pretty well. And like obviously there's still times when it's just like, oh, I just went off and did this thing. And that can sometimes be really good, but we've basically given people like a general sense of like, you should spend 80% of your time working on core important features and spend the 20% like trying out new things. People will spend that either on fixing tech debt or trying building out something completely new or adding like some polish items or fixing down bugs, things like that.
Right on. Very cool. Very cool. And then you're bringing the evals idea to your coding agents themselves, which is also pretty cool. How are you, yeah, thinking about like your harness and the effectiveness of the harness? Um, just would love to learn a little bit about the journey that you've had there, to give you confidence that the coding agents you're developing are, generating good results and good outcomes for the team. Hopefully
I'd
spending
love
not a ton of time just pushing back on slop in code review and things like that.
Yeah. So what we have right now is you basically have a commit SHA of like some point in our code base, and then you have a spreadsheet of like, here's a prompt, and here are like a notes basically of like for an LLM judge evaluator of like, here's what I expect a good implementation to look like. It's like very simple.
Sure.
Nothing too crazy. But we just wanted to start with just like one simple thing that we can do well. And we don't have a lot of evals yet. So I'm curious like how other teams are doing this, but at least having a few was better for specifically running and making updates to agents.md. Like
Yep.
we've hooked it up into our CI where anytime you change any agents.md file, it'll run these evals and you actually have to look at it and be like, check. Like
Very
I've
cool.
I've seen these. So it's like it's pretty simple stuff, but I think it's a lot of the simple stuff has bought us a lot from the like production AI agents front. So we're like, okay, we might as well put some of the simple stuff into our own internal builds too.
Well, and one of the reasons I think it's cool to learn from your experience is because you have been optimizing real production workloads around agent effectiveness. So the learnings that you have from that applied internally to your own dev team makes a ton of sense. Is there anything on the horizon that you're investing into internally with how your team leverages AI in the PDLC that you're really excited to talk about or share with our audience?
Probably the most exciting thing for us is just like these internal tools that we're building.
Hmm.
It's like making as many automations available as possible. For us, the most exciting thing has just been like iteratively decreasing the activation energy it takes to kick off a PR from a linear issue.
Yeah.
Doing the simple things to hook up a bunch of our systems, doing the simple things to make it easier to like when you've put up a PR, that PR has to be reviewed. It's like reasonable and like then you get a human to review it. Back in 2024, you would set up your CI/CD systems. Like now it
Yeah.
feels like okay, now you have to set up your AI agent system
Yeah.
in the same way.
Or like
So
your local developer environment. I remember when we were going through hypergrowth, both when I was leading engineering at Lattice and then before that at Dropbox, there was really heavy investment in how do we get an engineer to make a commit and deploy to prod on their first day. And
Yeah.
so that meant you had to have a good local environment, good CI/CD, good install scripts to get everything set up. And now it's kind of that same idea of delightful developer experience. We need delightful agent experience where it's like they have the tools, the friction is really low for them to be able to achieve the tasks that we delegate to them. So it
Yeah.
is like this new game of how to invest in the internal developer platform to make it agent friendly. And you're doing some really cool stuff, John. So appreciate you sharing some stories and some wins with us. Good luck out there with everything that you're working on.
Thanks. You as well.